Hello, Ayushi.
Hi, how are you?
Very well. Very warm welcome to you.
Thank you
This
so
is
much.
our VONG SDG Cafe discussion that we have twice a week. Um, and I'd start by introducing you, Ayushi. So Ayushi is the Vice President of Moving. It's a tech platform that is transforming the market of 2 million last mile vehicles by accelerating EV adoption. And she herself has driven 30,000 electric kilometers on the Nexon EV in just the last 1 year. Ayushi has worked in the electric mobility space for the last 5+ years, both in India and California. We are so proud to have you on board with us today, Ayushi.
Thank you, and it's my pleasure. You guys are doing a great work and excited about this session.
Awesome. So I'm Nitin Dhawan, and I'm the host for today. And I'm the chief Pongal of the Wong movement of Orion Square. Uh, so let me tell you a little bit about the Wong movement before we start. The main goal of the VONG movement is to try and save the world by accelerating the adoption of sustainable practices. So, the way we do this is by building awareness and understanding of the global social issues amongst the new generation, and also by building platforms for them to be able to influence the society, the behavior, the attitudes of the society, and also somewhere influence the policies of the government. So these are our regular events through which we try to build awareness about some of the solutions, some of the challenges facing the world, so that this new generation is able to think and learn more about them.
That's great.
All right, awesome. So whatever you'd like to start with before we get on to some questions, your own motivation to be in this particular space, how did you get into it, and this entire experience of driving 30,000 kilometers on the EV. How's it been for you?
So my career actually started off by doing my chemical engineering, and then going into Teach for India. So I was always motivated as a kid by my parents specifically that if you can, being very open about it, if you can afford to create change personally, then try to do things and try to do work that actually creates change. So starting off with Teach for India, and then I had an opportunity to be in California for about 4 years, where I actually started my career by focusing on water as a sector. So water technologies that can save water in general and the wastewater sector. Transition to clean tech overall, where I was helping climate companies across the bandwidth. So sustainable fashion, water, waste, agriculture, all sectors you can think of, including transportation. And then just slowly as I grew in my career, transportation became something that I really focused on, and that became my core strength. And policy making and supporting startups to actually get out there was something that I worked on. So I would say my major motivation was working on something that is impactful, and climate change has been a main part of it, along with helping women grow. Have been those big two
Wow,
topics in my life. Yeah.
so inspiring. So, how did you start to get to the sustainable space in the first place? What was your education, and how did it get you started? Were you in consulting?
No, I actually, that's why I did chemical engineering and then Teach for India. And then when I transitioned to California, I convinced the organization I was with that my last year project in engineering was on wastewater. So let me help here. So I started off by volunteering with that organization. And that's also to do with my visa status and things like that I couldn't work. But slowly within a few months, that transitioned into more on a policy making role. So I've always been someone who's been sort of a learner on the go. I have kept doing a lot of certifications and a lot of fellowships that have made me sort of grow with the sector, and especially because clean tech overall, any sector in clean technology or climate change is just evolving so fast. So you have to learn to grow with it versus just sort of do a degree in it and that's the end of it.
Right, right. So nowadays, if you're not in the sustainability space or not growing towards it, you may not even exist, as an industry in some time. That's very heartening and encouraging to see. So, and this fascination for EVs, how did that come about?
So while I was working on electric vehicles in Los Angeles, I was able to rent an EV and start driving it because I was like, I should actually be able to support if I'm talking to someone and telling the government or the local people to adopt an EV. I should be the first one to actually be able to drive it and experience it before even telling someone else. So I started off by renting an EV there, and once I transitioned back to India, I was able to buy one just in the last year. Before that, there weren't any good products that I could invest in terms of my savings and just putting all that together. And Nexon EV was sort of in a great space where I knew that it was a product that I could buy and make use of.
What do you call as a good product? What were you looking for in an EV?
So, a good product when it comes to electric vehicles is technology and battery. Any company that has worked at a vehicle in the electric vehicle space, from an angle that they have robust battery on the back end, because that makes up to about 30 to 50% of the cost. So if the battery itself isn't good, it's not something that's coming with a good warranty, then buying an electric vehicle sort of gives one a lot of anxiety, that especially in a country which is where it's new, right? In India, it's very new right now. Yes, we had the Revas of the world, but at scale, if I'm saying that I'm buying a 14, 15 lakh rupee car and that's going to drive me 200 to 300 kilometers a day, that has to actually pan out. I can't just waste splurge money and just end up buying it. And technology, so I can only speak about Nexon EV. I didn't go after MG, Hector, or BYD or others because they were way out of my budget. But when it came to the Nexon EV, if you look at the tech they back it up with, it's pretty robust. And I talked to people in the sector, and they said that it's a good investment for the kilometers I run. Like you talked about, 30,000 kilometers in a year is a lot. So that actually made sense for me because of the daily distances I was covering.
The EV in California versus how it's been in India?
It's actually the same. Very frankly, I hired a very cute Fiat 500 electric over there. It's those small cute cars that are there. So I would say the experience is way better here because, of course, I got a new car versus I hired a car over there. So a new car versus an old car, it's a wrong comparison. But electric is electric. These are noiseless vehicles without gears. You are literally driving a car, like a kid's car in the end of the day. Like there's nothing to it. And the pickup is great. The costing per kilometer is amazing. I drove a Fortuner before that, and the costing per kilometer is insane on that. It goes up to about 8 to 9 rupees per kilometer, versus here it's a rupee a kilometer maximum if I have to take extreme maintenance and things like that. So yes, you can call it small things in terms of money, but it does add up to a lot, especially given petrol prices did hit about 100, rupees just last year, and will probably hit the
Going to
same
increase now,
soon.
given what is happening. The petrol prices are only going to increase from here.
Yes, sorry, I didn't get that.
I said the petrol prices are only going to increase now, given what is happening in Russia, Ukraine.
And yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah,
they'll anyway increase. Like oil is getting over, repositories are getting over, so this will only increase.
So I'm also trying to understand the experience, not just of driving, but the security of being able to recharge every now and then, the amount of time that it takes, the whole convenience. How do you compare the convenience of having a EV car in California versus India so far?
So right now, there is only a government entity called EESL, which lets you hire a car, and that's also more on a monthly or a 3 month, 6 month basis. It's not like your standard car rental like Zoom Car and others, which lets you rent for a day. And I believe even if there are companies, it's more on the expensive side. So I've not explored myself. When it comes to, so I would say overall, it's a difficult task in India as of today to rent an EV. I know cities like Delhi and Mumbai and others who offer this service called Blue Smart, where you can hire a cab for a day. And that's an amazing service. So anyone can book a cab. You know you're going to have meetings all day. It's a fully electric car and it's very
Wow.
professionally driven. And you're good to go in a city like New Delhi. Even if you're going all the way from Gurgaon to all the way from Greater Noida coming back, it's still
Does
less.
it cost less also?
I believe so. Yes, I have not hired it myself because I drive an
What were the
EV.
services once again?
Blue Smart.
Ah, okay. Okay, that's yeah.
So
If it's about the same cost as the Ola Ubers, I think a lot of people would prefer it. That's my feeling.
absolutely, I believe it is the same, but you have to hire it for the day. So that's when it makes
Mhm.
sense. But they recently got funded, so I do see them having an Ola Uber service sort of a scenario soon, where anyone can pick up and drop it off at any point.
Wow. There must be a lot of resistance also amongst the people who don't have the EVs right now to not allow these kind of cars to get on the road.
There is, but very frankly, Delhi government as well as Maharashtra government has been on forwarding in terms of pushing on EVs. So there will be a policy in a year maximum where it will mandate Ola, Uber, or even companies like Amazon, Flipkart, and others to convert. All these are basically commercial vehicles, right? To convert a certain percentage of their commercial vehicles to all electric. So about 10 to 25% of all their new vehicle purchases will have to be electric in the coming 3 to 4 years.
Right.
So
So, if new purchases, is it possible to convert a normal vehicle into an EV vehicle at all? Otherwise,
there, yes, so there are retrofit kits that are coming into the market. None of them have actually sort of panned out in a successful manner, and I really don't see it going that way. It's sort of saying, just one second. It's sort of saying that you had an old car which was BS3 or BS2 standard, and now BS6 is there. So why don't you sort of break that down, change the engine, and convert it into BS6? So, but that's my personal philosophy. I'm not talking as a company here, but I frankly believe that retrofitting is not going to go anywhere. Maybe in smaller vehicles, so two-wheelers, it's easier. Three-wheelers, it's a whole different ball game. You're talking about sort of thousands of parts in a petrol diesel engine versus maybe a countable number of parts in an electric vehicle. It's just your chassis, your motor, and your battery, and some software in an electric vehicle versus all of us know how many pistons, etc., are there just in a petrol diesel vehicle.
yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. Yeah. So no, I was also trying to understand not just comparing rental cars to rental cars, but when you own a car or whatever car you have, the whole convenience of recharging it, the sense of security that I can also travel longer distances, or I can take it to the hills. I will have no problem. So what sort of difference exists between California and India? In that respect.
Absolutely. So I would say yes, if you own a expensive vehicle like Tesla in California or a BMW i3, I believe, or others which are on the expensive end, which have a huger battery pack, you can travel a lot in US among the major cities there as well. It's not like you can go to the middle states suddenly and there's enough charging infrastructure still there. So as of today, India is actually doing better in terms of charging infrastructure as well as just overall adoption, the sort of the pathway to adoption than US. It's a myth that US beyond your big states like New York and California are sort of on the forefront. So in India, as of today, if you own an electric vehicle, it may be your MG, your Tata, your BYD, or soon to be your new Mahindra XUVs that are coming in, all of these being electric, you can drive from Delhi to Nainital. You can drive easily, and there are fast chargers. There are enough fast chargers in place from Delhi to Chandigarh, Delhi to Shimla and other places. So it's actually become that simple. Yes, you cannot compare it to your petrol diesel engines, which take about 2 to 3 minutes to refuel and then suddenly drive another 4 to 500 kilometers. Here you're looking at a 200 to 250 kilometer bracket, and then recharging about 40 minutes on a fast charger, and then going another 200 to 50 kilometers. So I would say that is a constraint, but I will put this myth aside that the electric vehicle will suddenly stop in the middle of the road, because none of us are stupid enough to sort of plan a 300-kilometer trip without looking at a charger when you know your vehicle can only go about 250 kilometers. So you will anyway plan trips that are within your range to your next charger or to your destination. But I personally this car because majority of my intercity distances are within 200 kilometers. So in the last 12 months, I would say I've used a fast charger only 3 to 4 times. As a simple geyser plug point, your 3-pin plug point, which we use, the power points in all our Indian homes, that's more than enough to charge your car. So you just come in the night, you just plug it in, and in the morning you have a full charge of 200, 250 kilometers, and you're good to go.
So you are able to do the slow charging at home. You don't need anything. You don't need a charging column or charging station at home at all.
You need your AC geyser point, like just your simple power point.
Understand. And what do you see as the potential to make that 40-minute fast charging to something even faster? Is that something which might happen sometime in the near future?
Absolutely, in a year or two maximum. So at Moving specifically as a company, we are running about 800 three-wheelers and two-wheelers. In three-wheelers specifically, because the battery size is more, there are great companies like Log9 and others who are actually building batteries that can be recharged to about 50 to 80% within 15 minutes. So you can sort of have a good top up on your vehicle, top it up by 50 to 60 kilometers again, because these three-wheelers have a range of about 100 to 150 kilometers, and you're good to go. So Indian battery companies themselves are developing technologies where within 15 minutes you'll have enough of a top up. But in the future, as battery management systems, so BMS, battery management systems, that's what controls a battery, as well as the battery technology itself in terms of the chemistry. As both these things evolve, I don't see it taking more than about 10 to 15 minutes to charge your battery of about 30 to 40 kilowatt easily.
Yeah, but the real breakthrough would be when that also comes close to like 3 to 4 minutes, equivalent to that of a petrol vehicle.
That's true, but I would say the other perspective here is that probably in the next 5 to 10 years, there will be vehicles that go to about 300 to 400 kilometers per charge. So you actually wouldn't, when you come to your driving, you will probably never end up using a fast charger until there was a sudden emergency. So that, of course, will be the scenario. When it comes to driving about 400 kilometers on a highway, no one probably, except probably truck drivers and commercial vehicle drivers, end up driving that much without stopping and eating somewhere. So you will stop at your McDonald's or your Haldiram's, and that's where your chargers will be. And by the time you're actually eating and coming back, your car is fully charged. So I would say that is the other issue in the industry, where we are comparing it way too much with petrol and diesel. And that sort of
mentality. You don't need the same kind of facility. You don't need a petrol station to do all of this. Yeah. Absolutely. So it will change the way we are refueling the cars.
Absolutely.
How about carrying extra batteries? Is that an option?
So battery swapping is a great concept that is coming into the market. It was actually sort of even prioritized in the recent budget speech as well. Battery swapping will be again viable for sort of certain scenarios. So as I said, truck drivers or commercial vehicles, they have to run multiple shifts. They have to probably run hundreds of kilometers in general. So they will need sort of such quick top-ups so that they don't waste any time in general. But when it comes to a normal person, you actually don't need infrastructure in the end. If you have a sort of scooty or a motorcycle that's going to run 200 kilometers on a full charge, Probably, I would say, and this is just data from my own personal experience, in your day-to-day life, you're not going to run on a daily basis 200 kilometers unless you are a delivery person or a commercial vehicle person. So again, you will just come home, take out your battery, take it to your apartment, plug it in just like your phone, and it'll be fully charged and you'll get it down. Like that's what's going to happen.
Right. No, I'm just trying to understand how heavy is a car battery. Is that, can you carry an extra one?
Absolutely not. Again, it's extremely heavy. So, for example, just a two-wheeler battery. If I have to be comparative, generally two-wheelers have a 3 to 4 kilowatt hour battery. A two-wheeler, sorry, a 3 to 4 kilowatt hour battery. A three-wheeler has about 8 to 10 kilowatt hour battery. A four-wheeler like Nexon or a BYD or anyone else has between 3 to 50 kilowatt hour battery. Just your two-wheeler battery is one single 3 kilowatt battery is equivalent to a cylinder, a fully filled cylinder. So it is heavy. So imagine a car
And
battery.
voluminous also? Heavy and
Uh,
voluminous? So,
no, volume I would say over time will be decreased. So right now I wouldn't say it's volumetric, but in your standard car also your battery is on the lower end. It's on your chassis, so it's not taking up much of your space. But you have to realize as you increase weight in your car, then you're also reducing speed because
yeah, of
more
course,
weight.
of course. I'm just thinking of it as one option that somebody might want to trade off, and not, maybe you don't carry too many passengers, and might want to carry an extra battery, out there, just as an option.
Absolutely.
Right. So somebody asked, in the audience is asking this question: if battery swapping is likely to create more waste, um, because you just have more batteries out there. Um,
Absolutely.
and so
So
I mean,
yeah.
one extended question to this would be, um, what is the life of a typical new batteries? Lithium. These are all lithium batteries.
Yes, lithium ion for now, and of course, chemistry is evolving. But the most widely scaled up manufactured is lithium based technologies.
Yeah. So what is the typical life? Like the lead acid battery has a life of about 5, maybe 7 years. What is the life of a typical lithium ion battery?
So generally, it's about 4 to 5 years. That's what the guarantee is on your two-wheelers if you have to take the most adopted EV in India. But after 5 years, it's not like it's going to come to zero. So suppose the first 5 years you're getting about 100 kilometers of charge. Post that you'll probably get about 85 to 90. Post about 2 years of that, you'll get like the battery degrades a little by about 10% generally every year post 5 years. So still, I would say it would be about 8 to 9 years comparative to your standard ICE and diesel vehicle. But I would also like to bring up one more point, which is something that I've personally observed that even in your petrol diesel cars, over time, your average decreases, right? Your average mileage decreases. So you are paying more per kilometer. So no one sort of factors that in when you factor in an EV. Again, right now the focus is too much on how we can compare electric vehicles to your petrol diesel vehicles, more in terms of infrastructure. But the reality, once you start driving them, is totally different. And just to say the last thing, yes, there is a possibility that battery swapping will bring in more batteries per vehicle that will need to be out there. Uh, but again, it's a very evolving ecosystem, and things will evolve as a commercial vehicle user via moving. Battery swapping is something that will help us deliver more orders on electric in the end of the day. So we work with the biggest top e-commerce companies, e-grocery companies to make these deliveries. And if a driver has to earn more per EV, they have to sweat the asset more. By asset here, I mean the vehicle they're buying. So they can only do that if they can get fast charges. And the fastest way of charging their two-wheeler or three-wheeler is swapping. So that it will be sort of case study wise, but again, you can't restrict things too much initially in a new sector because you have to let it evolve initially to a point where.
Absolutely, absolutely. But the thing about electric vehicles in particular, as against other newer technologies, is that people want to adopt it. They want it to really become very fast, and they are looking at those advancements to accelerate so that they can hop onto it. There's a lot of expectation, around here. So so that's really the reality, and that's one of the reasons I think everyone's very interested to understand this space more and more. Um, you were mentioning about the life of the lithium-ion battery going down, life as in the efficiency of that going down, um, more in terms of it giving the output of lesser kilometers. Does that affect the overall efficiency in the sense that it will still take, so the cost per kilometer will go down, or does the cost per kilometer um, remain the same? As in, if the battery degrades a little bit, so instead of taking 250 rupees worth of electricity to charge it, does it start taking 180 rupees worth of electricity to charge to give 180 kilometers of battery, or does it take 250 rupees of electricity to give 180 kilometers of output?
It's the latter. So the battery will anyway be the same size in terms of a 3 kilowatt hour battery. So it will take those many units itself. So I would say even rates per kilometer will go up by the same percentage. But in comparison to petrol, the sort of difference will only go up in the next 5 years. It will probably go up a lot many
No, I
times given.
understand. I'm just thinking in terms of the battery swapping um, ventures. Will they then be rating the battery to say how old the battery is, and here you can expect a little less efficiency and whatever else? Is that also likely to happen?
So a lot of those things are being worked out. In the end, battery swapping at scale is only going to work out if there's interoperability between different manufacturers. If every company, two-wheeler company, three-wheeler, four-wheeler comes out with their own battery type, uh, you can't expect each of them to actually have a swapping station at every other kilometer. So again, interoperability is the main thing. So let's see how things evolve. There should be some sort of policy draft in the coming months, given this is a priority of the government. But at a personal level, having studied this market, it will be difficult for OEMs to come on the same page to actually say batteries, which is the biggest sort of even value addition from their end on that vehicle, is interoperable. Like anyone can make a battery and we'll let you swap it. So it will be an interesting way the sector evolves.
Yeah, it's actually pretty ideal, but also very difficult to implement. Again, based on the nature of the vehicle, how luxury the vehicle might be. They might want to have a higher end battery, which should not be swappable with the others, like that.
Absolutely. And as I said, one last thing, in an electric vehicle, the two biggest things is the motor and the battery. That's where all your sort of investment as a manufacturer has gone in to optimize your battery, to optimize your motor. So you are saying that OEMs have to come on the same page to actually share that IP to make sure that happens. So yeah, go ahead.
Very unlikely. Was there at any point in time an attempt to make a hybrid vehicle with EV and petrol power? The way it happened with natural gas.
So, as moving, we are not manufacturers, but at a personal level, yes, there were a lot of hybrids that I did see in US. But what is happening is that in general, most large OEMs, manufacturers are transitioning straight to electric because they know that's the future and they would rather invest on a manufacturing line that will pay out versus a manufacturing line that is probably not going to work out in the post 5 to 10 years. So even in India, I believe a few vehicle manufacturers did get hybrids out, but long term standards are changing so fast. Right now, there's just like from BS5 to BS6, then BS6 to hybrid, then hybrid to electric. Everyone knows it's going towards only electric. So as a manufacturer, as a smart manufacturer, you would invest all your investments towards getting a better electric vehicle on the market. Hybrid.
The whole R&D in making hybrid also more efficient would be so much more. So invest that R&D in making a good electric vehicle. Maybe a better return on investment for the manufacturer.
Absolutely. Yep.
So what about the emissions that are caused. This is a tricky one. So we are saying that electric vehicles are not non-polluting, but the power which is powering the electric vehicles, might itself be polluting. We are still getting it out of the grid, and it's being powered by thermal power stations and other. So, what are your thoughts about that?
Absolutely. So the best way to sort of simply classify sort of any pollution related to a vehicle, one is the manufacturing side in terms of all the components that go into manufacturing. Second is how you are powering the vehicle. It may be petrol, diesel, electric, hydrogen, whatever it is. And third is on ground, tailpipe emissions that actually come out of these vehicles. So there have been multiple comparative analyses that have been done on ground. And even as of today, even if you compare an electric versus a petrol diesel vehicle, when it comes to the first component, that's the manufacturing aspect. So a lot of people talk about how lithium and other cobalt and other aspects of the battery components of the battery are mined, and there is pollution around that. Even if you take those localized pollutions plus pollution related to the grid, plus zero tailpipe emissions on ground, electric vehicles are about 30% less in their pollution versus petrol. So that analysis has been done. And over time, as you start transitioning your grid to a greener grid, uh, it will only sort of emissions overall will only get lesser and lesser. And at a personal level, I feel that you're looking at sort of 100-200-year-old industry as the petrol diesel industry, as well as your power industry, that you're asking to transition overnight into a green thing. Countries like India and others have set standards, so they're not saying that we are going to be dependent on coal. They are upping their renewable energy goals. So transitions take time, but yes, they shouldn't take too much time that we sort of miss out on our climate goals as well.
But 30% is not a lot. The difference is only about 30% if you combine, all the effects of, mining and everything. So it's not really a lot. Is that likely to become more? Difference between.
So the gap is 100% going to become more. So I would say the comparison between a petrol vehicle as well as an EV will probably suppose there are 100 100 tons of carbon that is emitted just from petrol. From an EV, it'll come down to about 10 to 15 to 20 maximum. I don't see it going above that. And yes, anything you're manufacturing in the end, there will be some associated sort of footprint to it, but how do you balance that footprint, right? Like you're working your grid towards a greener grid, like we at Moving are making sure that our charging hubs that we are building are actually powered by solar where they can, and making sure we actually sort of work on properties which are solar facing and things like that, like just small steps like that. But I would say over the next 5 to 10 years, that gap will only sort of increase and EVs will only become greener.
Is lithium as such poisonous? Is lithium, is lithium and is lithium poisonous? Like if it's touched or anything, it's not like heavy metal, right?
I don't think so. It's a heavy metal, but I did engineering quite a long back, so I'm probably not remembering. But
hydrogen,
from my
helium,
it's not.
Lithium. No.
Yes. So I would be.
I don't know. I don't know if it's
and
heavy metal.
I totally didn't like organic chemistry in school, so I would say I'm the worst person to ask this question.
Let me Google it up very quickly. Lithium or heavy metal? No, in fact, lead, mercury, and cadmium are heavy metals.
Yep.
And is lithium a light or heavy metal? Lithium is the lightest metal in the world. Yeah, it is. It's very, very light. So it's in the very beginning of the periodic table.
And I'm
Okay.
happy you sort of brought up lead. That's another issue in the market, right? A lot of our auto rickshaws in Chandni Chowk and other places are actually being run on lead acid batteries. And that's becoming a huge issue because any of those vehicles that are not being run by some agency, most of the cases, these lead acid batteries are just being disposed without being recycled, and many of them are being disposed openly where the lead actually leaks into the groundwater. So that's another issue where we need to work on ensuring that these batteries are safely disposed, or they're actually converted into lithium ion batteries.
Yeah, in fact, there is a lot of work which has happened in the lead acid batteries space as well in terms of recycling it. I know of a lot of companies that have started to, make new batteries out of the older lead acid batteries. And similar thing might also start to happen,
Yeah.
as we use, the lithium ion batteries as well. So yeah, I mean, there is
100%.
yeah, those sort of innovations will come about, in time. Um, and so one of the interesting questions that somebody asked was, EVs are noiseless, yes, but uh, that also is a surprise element for the pedestrians. Pedestrians don't know
Yes.
when a vehicle is approaching them, uh, and it may lead to higher accidents, or may already be doing that. So, what are your thoughts on that?
So it's funny actually how a lot of large companies like Ford, GM, and others across the world have filed patents just on replicating noise of a vehicle, which they are now actually inputting in these cars so that they
Wow.
sound like a vehicle, which we say. Yes, it is an issue. I don't see accidents happening unless you're not looking at the road. As an EV user, after a day, literally, you realize that motorcycle guy who's going on the road, you will have to honk a little for him to realize, because most of them don't even see their rear view mirrors. So if people saw their rear view mirrors, you wouldn't have, it wouldn't matter if a vehicle makes noise or not in the end of the day. But in India, most people don't look at their rear mirrors. So yes, there will have to be some voice component, and it's being worked on anyway.
Yeah, maybe in time we're going to have more powerful peripheral sensors, letting people know there's something in the vicinity. And, there's also going to be a lot of automation, the autonomous driving, which is going to happen, which is going to change a lot of things. Okay, so our friend Shubham is asking, are there any regulations regarding recycling of batteries? Are there any regulations on
Yes, there
lithium-ion
are
batteries that
draft
you're aware of?
regulations. Yes, draft regulations in place already. And because it's such an expensive component, and like I said, even after 5 to 10 years, it's not going to degrade to a 0 point, right? These are amazing batteries that can be used as sort of inverters at homes. They can be used as sort of energy storage devices under your solar plants. They can be easily used as energy storage devices under your telecom towers, instead of putting generators out there. So the sort of the long term aspect from a long term aspect, these batteries can be reused multiple times for multiple sort of generations in comparison to anything that exists right now.
Yeah, but I'm wondering, when the efficiency is going down, why would you start to use it for any of the other applications? When it's like 70% efficiency or 50% efficiency compared to a new one, what sense does it make?
No, so that battery itself is so heavy, right? Like you're looking at a car battery, which is a 30 kilowatt hour battery that will probably have enough energy density to support a home's solar sort of intake easily for many, many years. That's enough to absorb. I'm sure I've not researched into this much, so I may be wrong here. Into any smaller applications. And as you go into trucks and other sort of large vehicles, these battery packs in the end are sort of heavy enough from an energy storage standpoint to take up that much load. So that research has been done, but I don't have the numbers right now to actually say them out loud.
Right. Very well. So, I think one of the important things which we also like to understand from our guests is, um, some sources or places where the new generation can learn more about the benefits, the challenges, and the future of EVs in general.
Absolutely. So the government of India, Niti Aayog specifically, I believe, has launched a portal. I'm forgetting its name. I can post it as a comment post when this video is done. There are online portals where you can track. So CEEW, there's another nonprofit that has an electrification platform where you can track what OEMs are there. How many sort of OEMs have got rebates and things like that. So you can track all that. So I can post all those links. Yep, post this.
Right. Very well. So are there any drawbacks or challenges which you may like also for us to be aware of, or people to do more research so that we're able to address? I mean, it's of course everyone understands the benefits and why it's moving there, but what could be some of the watch outs?
Just one sec. Avantika, 1 minute. Yes. So when it comes to researching, I would say the first step is actually whenever you are in the market, actually go out there and try an EV. It's very simple. So try one. When it comes to research, a lot of governments in the next 2 to 3 years will be giving a lot of rebates for these EVs. I myself got a 1.5 lakh rupee rebate from Delhi government just for buying an EV, upfront subsidy for the same. As of today, national government as well lets go of the road tax that's involved in buying an EV. And when it comes to just answering questions around EVs, there are a lot of platforms in place that are trying to do so. So your standard articles around EVs will be good enough because people and journalists have become more informed about what EVs are on ground. And then post that, I would say you can reach out to me. You can reach out to anyone in the EV sector, and they'll tell you sort of the pros and cons of it. And as I said, CEW and other platforms that the government has created lets you answer every aspect of an EV, like what is it as an EV, what are the subsidies, why you should buy one, and what is the monetary benefit around it.
Right. No, I'm just trying to understand. Maybe again, something you can think about for us, for the industry as such, to work towards to improving this whole space. Which may not be addressed. Because it's a new space in any case. So the challenges or the opportunities that exist in the entire EV space. I mean, consciously or subconsciously, which you may have captured.
So I didn't understand your question. So in terms of subconsciously, what's not being captured?
Some of the drawbacks or the drawbacks of EV, or something which is a blind spot for the entire EV development, which should be addressed going forward. So that it becomes even stronger.
I would say we've majorly talked about the aspects when it comes to a day-to-day person who's buying a car. Range anxiety is a huge issue, and that will be resolved over time. It is difficult as a person to buy a car, how much ever it may cost, and say it's only going to drive about 250 to 280 kilometers, right? Like there's a huge psychological aspect to buying an EV. So I would say that is a big issue, and it will take time to resolve it. Again, charging time is another thing that it's going to take me an hour on a fast charger. So what am I even going to do there? So if suddenly my car stops, which it never does. But still, again, these are psychological aspects to it, which you're comparing to a petrol diesel vehicle. And it's very natural because that's how one has moved for so many years. Beyond that, you have to realize I bought an Nexon EV. I believe a petrol Nexon EV costs about 8 to 9 lakhs on road, versus this one costed about 14 and a half lakh rupees. So you are paying more for the same car. In India, a car is seen as a luxury, like who owns what kind of car or what sort of segment of car, right?
Yeah,
so you're paying 5 to 6 lakhs for the same car. So why are you doing that? So all these are more psychological aspects to it, and they will come to it. I would say when it comes to the product itself, make sure you read through the warranties, 2-wheeler, 3-wheeler, 4-wheeler. You read through battery warranties. because that's where companies can make a fool of you, especially in the two-wheeler segment. Of course, there are large brands like Hero and others that are doing a great job, but there are a lot of random OEMs that are coming into the market as well. So make sure what you're buying into, and make sure the warranties and the contracts are in place, because a lot of them are being just imported from China. There's nothing wrong with it, but Chinese batteries are tested in China versus Indian road conditions are very different. So you have to make sure that these vehicles are properly tested. There are agencies like ARAI, and others that actually do proper road quality sort of testing, and then only you can end up buying it. So all these checks and balances in place before you buy it.
Wonderful. But the cost is actually, I didn't realize that the cost was so different. I thought the difference was about 20%, maybe 25%, especially for the more expensive cars. But is it like almost double for
Yeah.
the mid-segment cars?
Yes.
All of them?
Yes. All. Not most. I would say even the BMWs and the Jaguars that are coming in, they are extremely expensive. I believe a Jaguar or a BMW costs about 80 to 90 lakhs on market, 70, but the electric versions that are coming in are about 1.2, 1.3 crores. So that difference is there. But again, people, I've also said this out loud. People who end up buying such vehicles do not need to think about these things. So yes, that's a whole
Yeah, but
difference.
I thought the
That's
difference
for the
was
next
about
on.
20 to
Yeah.
30%, not
Yeah.
80 to 90%. So that's
Yes,
really
right
surprising.
now it's a 70-80% gap that is there. I would say by the next 2-3 years it will drop. But again, it will take time, probably 5 to 6 years, to actually come to price parity with subsidy. So subsidies being in place. That will be a major role more on the personal vehicle side. When it comes to commercial vehicle side, because most of these vehicles are being sweated as assets being used as much. So you will take out that cost differential very easily in about 3 years of using anyway.
Right, right. Very well. Um, it was actually, I'm done with the questions, and it has been very, very knowledgeable. For me, I'm sure it's the same for the audiences. Um, we are going to be making several highlights of this particular video. Taking out some important chunks, making trailers out of this. We'll be doing some articles also out of this. I'm sure this will go on and reach a lot of students and help them go deeper into the space, understand it, and then make their decisions and try and also explain to other people on what they should be doing. Um, Lastly, is there any question anybody would like to ask? Anybody wants to come online for a minute or ask any questions? So one of the questions was, what are some possible steps you feel can be taken to make EVs more accessible and understandable, the features and handling instructions by people today? Are there any possible steps required to make EVs more accessible? Is there a problem in accessibility of EVs? I'm not sure. Maybe one of the things could be the repairs. When a lot of Indians also have this mindset of having nearby mechanics or people who understand these vehicles. That may be adding to the hesitancy in buying these things that these are imported or CKD products. Will somebody be able to repair them? Is there enough happening in terms of training the mechanics and the garages to take care of the EVs?
So right now, because as I said, there are almost no moving parts in comparison to a petrol vehicle. There's close to no maintenance on these vehicles. I believe at every 15,000 kilometers, you have to change the gear oil, which is standard across any car. When it comes to updating the technology, yes, I would say right now it's in control of the manufacturer itself. So I have to give my car to a Tata dealer who updates my software on the car. But how other markets globally have evolved is that the battery management system can be tapped in by others as well. And so, like in petrol, diesel, you go to any sort of localized car person and get it done. It will be the same for electric as well, but you won't be going as many times because there are not enough parts to service in the end of the day. It's just your motor and battery, and you're good to go.
Right. So servicing may not, may not require servicing every 2 months. May need to
No,
go like
not
once
at
in
all.
6 months.
Yes, it's more of a kilometer thing. Like I hit 30,000 kilometers, 15,000 kilometers. I had to just go in and check in. But Tata at least gives me an app which does proper diagnosis of my vehicle. It even keeps up with the heat issues on battery and things like that. Like I've not had any heat issues, but they are tracking those parameters. So I'm sure they themselves will let me know that your battery is getting heated up. Like these are simple things that can happen on ground. But because it's all online now, just like track and trace, uh, it'll be very easy to do sort of your simple diagnosis on your vehicle just on an app.
Right. Right. But we are talking primarily about the engine. Everything else about the car is the same. It's the engine which is different, right? So engine may
Yep.
not require as much. There's the axle, there's the wheels, there is, everything is gotten wear and tear. There are the lights and there's the whole chassis. Um, so, yeah. So, and as long as, people have enough spare parts available for all of this, it should be okay.
Absolutely. So I'm sure like if tomorrow, God forbid, my light breaks on my Nexon EV, it's probably the same light as a Nexon EV, like as normal Nexon petrol, right?
Right.
So it'll just get
Right.
exchanged very easily.
Right. Very well. So thank you so very much. I would like to also take your feedback on, this particular initiative, the VONG movement. What are your thoughts about it?
I was really happy to very frankly read about it, especially given that you're focused on the youth, because we all talk about climate change and clean technology and things like that, but there has to be some sort of platform that breaks it down, right? What does it mean? Like one of the questions is, where can I find more information that's easily digestible? So I would say that's the biggest aspect I like about the Wong movement, where they are sort of breaking it down into bits and pieces that are easily digestible. So kudos on that. And overall, I've seen your feed and the great work you've been doing across sectors. So it's not just focused on one thing. So I'm sure you have learned so much in terms of how diverse the overall clean tech movement is, and a lot more has to come in. And I'm happy you guys are working as that platform to give that access.
Thank you so very much. So encouraging. Thank you for your time,
Thank you.
Arushi. Really appreciate, and I see that you also are working in the space of women empowerment. That's another space which is very interesting for us. So we'll also be in touch with you to see if you're interested to, give us some insight, some wisdom in that space as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, thank you so much for having me today. And I will make sure I share the links on how to easily access more information on EVs.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye bye.